Hi guys, and welcome to another review. This time I'll be talking to you guys about the CCA CA10. It's a all BA set, 5 BAs per side, and it's the latest release, or one of the latest releases from the KZ Empire, let's put it that way. Um, and it uses very much the same shell that we've seen time and time again used. It is a large IEM. It isn't small, but it fits nicely. It's got good fit, good isolation. At least in my case, I have nothing really to complain. The shell is a shell which is very reminiscent of the shell of the DQ6, the KZ ZAS, and so on and so forth. It's just that it's got this novel faceplate. Let me see if I can just zoom it in a little bit so you guys can see. It's got this different faceplate now. Wow, look at that. That looks nice, huh? That looks really nice. And it's a combination of a good quality plastic resin shell. This kind of well, it seems like it's some sort of a metal. Yes, metal faceplate, and then with that acrylic green and so on. Yeah, it looks nice. It really does. I mean, it's been tastefully done. There's no complaints there. In terms of what is it using inside of the BAs, let me just pick this up. Yes, I don't make any mistakes. Well, it's using a 22955 in the low end, which is no surprise there, and then it's using 29689 for the mids, and then a combination of 30095 and 30019s for the high frequencies, and then a 30017 for a mid to high frequency. So the 22955 handles the lows, the 29689 handles the mids, the 30017 handles the mids and a little bit of the highs, and then the 30095 and the 3019s handle the highs. So it's normal BAs, nothing special in terms of what is being used in the material, and the price reflects that. I mean, we're talking about roughly $55 more or less. You can maybe get it a little bit cheaper now during the Chinese New Year sales, and so but it is what it is. That's basically it. And if you looked when I initially showed that, I've got it here. Let me just zoom back out. Sorry. So I've got it here in a company of a merry bunch, let's put it that way. I've got TRN VX Pro, TRN X7, KZ ZAS, the CA10, DQ6, and CCA CRA. There's obviously a reason why all these IEMs are here. There's a particular reason, and I'll get into that now, and I'll explain everything now. Actually, let me just start by showing you. One second. Let me just start by showing you the graph. And by showing you the graph, I think quite a few things will start explaining themselves quite nicely. Okay. So let's put here the graph of the CA10 to start with. So it's number 2. We're going to take the rest out, and I'll start explaining. Okay, so here we go. Here we have the graph of the CA10. As you can see, loads of bass, and the thing is, it's actually quite funny because contrary to other KZ stuff that just uses BAs, I don't know if it's the fact that it's only 5 BAs, but the bass actually sounds nice. There isn't that pronounced BA sensation of bass, let's put it that way. It actually sounds very nice. And when I compared it to the CRA, for example, which is a DD, I was actually quite surprised. It actually has a nice timbre to it. It's got a nice texture. It's got a nice tonality. So it's not that typical BA bass, let's put it that way. Anyway, loads of bass, below 100 hertz, plenty energy. The bleeding that occurs here into the mids is more than acceptable. Then yes, it's got this huge pin again. Then it's got the peak at around 5 and 6, and it drops off. Where do I personally fault it when I hear it? And I want to say one thing before I carry on. Unless the IEM is really blatantly rubbish, let's call it what it is. I usually like all IEMs, or I try and find things that I like about IEMs, because I try and put them into the context of what they are. So when I listened when I first listened to the CRA, I was listening to it expecting it and a $15 IEM, and what is it capable of? And obviously it exceeded my expectations, as it has exceeded expectations of most of us that have heard it. You cannot, and I think it's wrong, to hear an IEM like that and then start making comparisons with Elysian X's and U64s and MSTs, and no, you just can't. You can do it if it's done within reason and within reasonable limits. All of this to say what? When I listened to the CA10 the first time, I was expecting to hear something along the lines of what I heard when I heard the X7 from TRN. Why? Because the graph was kind of showing me, oh, this is going to be just this bloated bass, and I don't know about this peak, yeah, and then the highs all rolled off. And the reality is, it actually sounds nice. Yes, it is a slightly darkish IEM, and for example, if I put the graph of a CRA on here, let me put it so you can see. Yes, it doesn't have all that energy that the CRA has and all the twinklies and so on and so forth. But you know what? It actually sounds nice. I mean, in terms of the bass, graphically, and when you hear it, it actually sounds good. It sounds like a CRA bass. It does. For me, at least, it does. I mean, that's my opinion. Fine, obviously the CRA then has slightly recessed mids, but the mids and the way they are done in the CRA, they are very nice, and perhaps in the CA10 you notice more of that break between mids and bass than you do on the CRA. And then, that peak there, actually, you know what, maybe it's because the CA10 rolls off so quickly. It is not as bad as one would be led to believe by what you see here. All of this basically to say that, yes, it's a V-type signature. Yes, it is not perfect, but when I compare it, for example, to the X7, which is what I consider to be its rival, let's put it that way, and I'm going to put the graph of the X7 now. There you go. When I compare it to the X7, it is a superior IEM to the X7. The X7 bleeds more into the mids, in my opinion, in the sense that you feel more of that bloatiness. Okay, that's just how I perceive it. I don't know. It just, there's something here in particular that just makes it feel too full. Okay, the mids are not bad on the X7. No, they're not bad. And funny enough, it actually rolls off quicker. When you listen to it, you can feel that it's rolled off quicker than the CA10. Is that maybe because the CA10 has that extra energy there? Probably, it could be. The reality is the X7, I had high expectations for it. I did, I'm not going to lie. But when I heard it, I was a little bit disappointed. I was expecting a little bit more. And the only way the X7 actually can perform nicely is if you have a 30 ohm impedance adapter. If you put a 30 ohm impedance adapter, then it changes the curve completely, and it actually becomes much more pleasurable to listen. I'll even show it to you guys quickly. That's not an issue. TRN, X7, 30 ohm. There we go. Let me change the color. And now let me just adjust it here so it's all basically the same thing. So by looking at this, you would say, but across there isn't much of a difference. There's a little bit more bass, yes, but that maintains itself the same, and this here kind of stays the same. Well, the reality is, because there's this bigger difference here between the bass and then the mids, and you just also gained a little bit across there, it actually makes the X7 better to listen to. It's not perfect, but it's better. It's more pleasurable to listen to. Okay? Anyway, on to the CA10, and that's what we want to talk about. As I was saying, the CA10, loads of bass. The mids are fine. It's, in my opinion, it's the quick roll off into the highs that I suppose was done on purpose and to be safe, that maybe sometimes will be a disappointment because you're expecting a little bit more twinklies. That said, yes, it will be a fun IEM to listen to, EDM to a certain extent, unless it's got unless you listen to a lot of electronic music that has a lot of highs and so on and so forth, where you might find it lacking a little bit, or maybe not. I found it pretty decent as well, actually, with rock. It wasn't bad with rock. Vocals, depending on the vocals, it actually isn't as well too bad. I didn't like the female vocals that much. The male vocals were fine, were acceptable. With regards to stuff like the technicalities end of it, soundstage and imaging and detailed retrieval and so on and so forth. Well, soundstage is acceptable, I guess, for what it is. It's reasonably wide, not deep. Imaging, just okay, all right. And detailed retrieval as well, again, just okay. Is it maybe this lack of energy up top that contributes to that? Is it maybe this excess peak here that doesn't help out as well? I'm really not sure. What I do know is that those two parameters in terms of technicalities are not a strong point for the CA10. It is basically a fun all-BA set to listen to, which doesn't cost an arm and a leg, honestly. And I was pleasantly surprised. Like I said, I was really pleasantly surprised. Let me just throw in here a few things. How does it compare, for example, to the ZAS? And I'm just going to change the color of the ZAS so that we can see it better. Well, there we go. The red line. The ZAS has typical DD bass, nice, full. Some reviewers and some people have even considered it to be a bass monster, and it is to a certain extent a bass monster. It will please the bass heads. It's got acceptable mids to a certain point. They are they're a little bit recessed, and that recessed then just shuts down too many things too quickly. And overall, again, I think it was a bet that KZ did in terms of wanting to be safe and not having an aggressive IEM. That makes for an IEM where you have to choose your tips carefully. For example, myself, I'm using these BGVP wide bores, and they really make a difference. They really make it open up a little bit the sound. So you have to choose your tips carefully to make it, more airy, more open. Compared to the CA10, as you can see, it's got more information up top, so definitely got more twinklies. So detailed retrieval will be better. You do find a slight recess in terms of some mid information here in the upper mids, especially in the female voices. And the reason why I didn't like the female voices so much in the CA10 was only because I just found them unnatural. That was all. I guess it's the BA timbre or tonality coming into play there. But otherwise, it keeps up nicely with the ZAS. Let's put it that way, the CA10. Let me put in here the VX Pro, for example. The VX Pro. Here we go. Take the... Okay. There we go. The one thing that you notice straight away when you listen to the VX Pro is that it's got loads of information up top. And that's where its Achilles heel was, perhaps, because it made it sound sibilant sometimes. And that was one thing, for example, on the CA10, although you have all that energy there, it is less sibilant than the VX Pro, less sibilant. But yes, it does have all that energy, so if you keep your volume within certain limits, it's got more twinklies and more sparklies, and yes, the detail retrieval is far superior. Imaging is way better. Mids, very nice. I mean, the mids on the VX Pro really wasn't my complaint when I reviewed it. And the bass as well, it's fine. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit quicker, but it's fine. It's not a slow bass. Let's compare it to nope, not this one. Nope, not this one. Here we go. CA CRA. Okay. CRA, as I initially spoke in the beginning, the CRA, in terms of bass, the CA10 sounds very similar. Sounds very similar to the bass on the CRA. The mids and the CRA are superior because that transition, that marrying between the bass and the sub bass, the mid bass and the mids is better. And then yes, it's got again more information up top, so the sound is more open. It's a, you know, so much has been said about the CRA. I don't need to elaborate too much, but the CRA is an unbelievable IEM. That's the reality. For the price, you really can't go wrong. And there's a reason why I put it here, because it beats many of these. If it beats them, if I would say it beats them all. I'm gonna go as far as that. I'm gonna say that the CRA beats all of the IEMs in here, all of them. Okay, and the primary reason for that is the price to start with. For the price, none of them, even when you try and balance it out, even comes close. And then because it genuinely sounds good, the CRA just sounds very good. And you know, those of you that have had the chance to listen to it will attest to it. It's not perfect, but it's good. And then finally, I've got the DQ6 here as well. But this DQ6 is a DQ6 that I have modified slightly. Okay, let me actually change the color on it so we can actually see better. There we go. So what are the mods I've done on this DQ6? Basically, it's got I've changed the vent, the nozzle, you know, filter for foam, and a 300 grade filter. 200 grade filter. Okay, that has attenuated this whole area here, which on the standard one is quite prominent. And then it's also got this very large peak at around 8K on the standard one, and also that has been attenuated, plus as well the energy past that. The bass, I haven't touched it, but by adding the foam and the filter on the nozzle, it has increased the bass just a little bit. It's just a little bit more bass. I've put here the DQ6 because the DQ6 has now received an upgrade, the DQ6S, a collaboration with HBB, and I'm curious to listen to that. I've actually got 2 sets on the way. But the standard DQ6 compared to my modified DQ6 are 2 totally different beasts. My modified one, yes, that peakiness, that aggressiveness that you found, that sibilance is all basically gone. So I'm expecting the DQ6 to even be better. That's the reality. In terms of the bass and so on and so forth, from what I've seen of the initial graphs compared to mine, I don't think there will be much difference. The biggest difference, I think, will be basically centered around here with regards to my modified one. And the reason why I've, like I said, added the DQ6, my modified DQ6 at least here, to compare it with the CA10 is, I mean, the graphs are not similar. There are some similarities there, but it's a very different sounding IEM. I mean, the DQ6 sounds way more open, okay, not as closed off as the CA10, and sounds more relaxed, okay. Is it a bad thing? Well, it basically depends what it is, or is it a good thing. It depends what you want and what you listen to. I like it. I really like the way my DQ6 sounds. And actually, you know what, enough of this. Let me just show you the IEMs, because that's, I'm guessing, more interesting. We've talked about. So like I said, I like my DQ6. I like the way it sounds. I mean, from the standard one, way superior. I've compared it to my ZEX Pro, and I prefer this one as it is to my ZEX Pro. As compared to the CRA, I still think the CRA is superior. I still believe that the CRA is superior. That's why I'm actually curious to listen to the new DQ6 to see what it's all about. All of this to say basically what? That the CA10, when you listen to it, it's got, like I said, yes, immediately you notice that it's slightly warm, but it's a very energetic warm. It's a very, you know, it's very full of energy. So it's very engaging, like I said, if you want to listen to, it's a very fun IEM to listen to if you're going to listen to EDM, like I mentioned, there are some rock, some normal listening. Let's put it that way. It's a very good IEM for that. It's a very, very nice IEM for that. Very, very satisfying, honestly. And yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I just thought it'd be nice to kind of position it with regards to some of its brothers or competitors or whatever you want to put it that way. And yeah, I'll just quickly go through again a little summary as compared to the X7, which is an all BA set as well, superior to the X7, no doubt about it. Comparing it to the VX Pro and to the ZAS is not really fair, because that's an all BA and these are hybrids. But the biggest differences that you notice are that these ones, you know, both the VX Pro and the ZAS have got more twinklies. Perhaps the one that of these two, which is the better sounding one, I would say, is the ZAS, because it's got a little bit less energy, which is bad to the one extent, but it's in this particular case here, it's better than the ZX Pro, because this can become a little bit aggressive at times. Okay. And as for the CA10 compared to the CRA and to the DQ6, well, like I said, the DQ6, this particular one that I have here, which is being modified by me, has a very laid back, very easygoing sound. Although, like I showed you in the graph, they kind of graph similar-ish. And the CRA is the wild dog here. The CRA is really something special. You know, like I said again, and I'll repeat it again, for $15 you can't go wrong. This is really a tremendously good IEM, and I can only hope that KZ will improve upon what they've done here, because it's worth it. The same way that they have now improved upon the DQ6 with that collaboration, I would like to see a collaboration with the ZAS come up where they improve upon this, because it's worth it. I mean, this deserves it, honestly. And you know what, I actually would like to see something done as well to the CA10. It is an IEM that with a little bit more of a polish, it can actually become quite interesting. I haven't heard the CA24, but from what I've seen and from what I've heard from some fellow reviewers, this is, or seems at least, to be superior to the CA24. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked this little take of mine, and yeah, that's it. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you.